NFL Week 4 scripted picks. Let's get into it. Week First game on the board, we have Cincy at the Panthers. Panthers got their first win last week against a pretty bad Raiders team. And then we've got Cincy, who lost straight up in primetime as a 7.5-point dog. And I think the general consensus is everyone thinking Cincy has to win this game to stop them from going 0-4. And there's no way the Panthers, who just got their first win in who knows how many games, there's no way they can win 2 games in a row. So I think the general consensus is leaning towards the Bengals. We could see that right here, 67%. But I think what's even more unpredictable, that's more unexpected, would be that the Panthers get 2 wins in a row and Andy Dalton looks good 2 weeks in a row. So I think he gives a lot of life to this team. The whole team seems to be playing harder now that they know they have a capable quarterback. And now they're back at home, and the Panthers just haven't been playing that well either. So I'm going with the expect the unexpected. Panthers get their second win of the season. Panthers win back-to-back games. And Bengals do the unthinkable. A Super Bowl contender drops to 0-4. And I think just taking the points, it would be a safe bet too. Next up, we've got Denver, who just had a big upset last week against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And then we've got the Jets, who smoked the Patriots in prime time on Thursday night. And the money's pretty evenly split between these two teams. We see the line trickle up, go from Jets laying 6 to 8. And I don't think there's a hard angle for either of these two teams. Denver is playing their second road game in a row. They're a West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game. And really, do we think Bo Nix can keep it up? He played really good last week, played phenomenal last week. I think he was the player of the week or something. But is he going to do that against the Jets defense? Second game on the road. I don't think so. I'm leaning toward the Jets. I would take the Jets money line only. Just Rodgers doing well is good for the league. Jets already dropped the first game. Now I think this is their second game at home. So I'm leaning towards the Jets. I would stay away from laying the points or taking the points with Denver. Denver's one of the worst teams in the league, and I'm just hesitant to back teams that are in the bottom third, even though they are getting a good amount of points. So Jets money line for this one. Next up, we got the Jags, who got absolutely demolished last Monday night. So they're on a shorter week. And then Houston lost straight up as a 2.5, 1.5 point favorite on the road to the Vikings. And doesn't seem like anyone's interested in the Jaguars. Looks like the ceiling's falling for them. And I think that's what makes them enticing. I was on the Jags last week and I was dead wrong about it. But I'm not going to bet it, but I think the Jags are what Vegas wants. They're an 0-3 team, and now they've got a divisional foe. And Houston, I've been expecting to be a little bit better. I feel like they've kind of been disappointing. They got the win week 1 against Anthony Richardson, one of the worst completion percentage quarterbacks in the league. And then they beat the Bears, who haven't been that good, and then they lost to the Vikings, who are really good, got demolished by the Vikings, who are a really good team. So I actually think this game's more in their wheelhouse, and I expect the Jags after they got absolutely humiliated Monday night, for them to step up in a divisional game. So definitely a lean towards the Jags at plus 5.5. This team, the one concern with this team is that they just look completely out of it, unmotivated, coming out Monday night, and just the game was over within the first couple of drives. That's my one concern with them, with actually backing them. But we're talking about what I think the NFL wants is they want these teams to be close. They want divisional games to be close. And teams always tend to play up in divisional matchups. So that's why I'm leaning towards the Jags. Just seems like they can't get any lower than this. It's the lowest point you can buy them after they got absolutely demolished Monday night. Next up on the list, everyone is hopping on the Rams. No one wants any part of Chicago. Chicago just lost straight up to the Colts on the road. Now they're back at home, and we've seen this line movement move up from 1.5 to 3. We've got 65% on the Rams. Rams had a miracle comeback win against the 49ers last week. They really had no business winning that game. And just the line movement, I know the Rams are decimated by injuries, and that partly plays into the role of the line movement going up, but I think it's also due to some sharp action. Rams are in a really bad spot coming off of that miracle win last week. Chicago's at home after a tough loss, which they really could have won that game, easily could have won that game last week. So I'm leaning Chicago this week, Chicago -3. Now we've got Minnesota at Green Bay. Minnesota's been scorching hot this week. Everyone's wondering when Sam Darnold's going to come back to life. I don't know if that's going to happen. Green Bay has Jordan Love back this week. How healthy is he? That we have to wait and see play out. But Green Bay's been getting by with Malik Willis. They've got a really good coach. It's a divisional matchup. LaFleur, the head coach, does well. In terms of the scriptedness of this game, 62% on the Vikings. Their bandwagon is getting pretty large now, but I don't see a strong scripted angle in this game. I would just lean towards the Vikings because I think the coaching matchup is pretty even, and I just think the Vikings are better. I think Sam Darnold's better than Jordan Love, especially with the injury and how he's playing right now. So if you're giving me 3 points in a divisional matchup with what looks to be one of the best teams in the league, I'm going to take the Vikings because I think they could also have the opportunity to win straight up. Next up, we've got the Saints at the Falcons. Falcons laying 2.5 points laying 2.5 points at home. We've got 61% on the Saints. The Saints lost a close one last week against Philly after having opening the season with 40-point plus performances. They come back down to life last week, and I think people are expecting them, they played a good Philly team. They're expecting them to bounce back up, kind of revert back to what they were doing those first 2 games, maybe not quite as many points, but see them as a higher-powered team. And then we've got the Falcons. They lost a close one to the Chiefs last week. And in terms of scriptedness, I would lean towards the Falcons at home. Just seems like the Saints bandwagon is getting a little too big for me right now. And I think too many people are expecting them to go back to those first 2 weeks. I kind of think those were an anomaly. So they smoked the Panthers, who were one of the worst teams in the league, and they were still trotting out Bryce Young. And then they went on and smoked someone else. And they lose to Philly straight up. What we saw last week is what I expect them to be more like going forward. So lean to the Falcons. My one concern is Saints absolutely demolished the Falcons last week of the season. So it could be a revenge factor for the Falcons, or the Saints just better. Falcons have added Kirk Cousins since then, but I would lean towards the Falcons in this game. Next up on the list, we've got Philly, won a close one against scorching hot New Orleans Saints. On the road against Tampa Bay, so this is a rematch of the wild card weekend last year that Tampa Bay won straight up. They were 3-point dogs in that game, and Tampa Bay's coming off of a whooping by the Denver Broncos. They were 7.5-point favorites, and they just lost straight up, and not even just lost straight up, they got smoked, humiliated at home. So now they're against Philly, who's coming off a win. Philly's down their top 2 receivers, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. So I talk a lot about the scriptedness with these picks, but these are real players making millions of dollars, so it's not 100% scripted, but I do think there is a hand that tilts. So I will talk about players a little bit in these videos too. So in terms of Philly at Tampa, I'm leaning towards Tampa. I'm just wondering if Philly has a revenge factor here from the playoffs last week. I like Tampa to bounce back off of that humiliating loss to Denver last week. I don't think Philly is as good as advertised, even though they beat the Saints. I think the Saints were a little overrated, and it took everything out of them to beat the Saints. And then plus they're down their top 2 receivers. So that's something I look at. Cluster injuries. A lot of injuries at one position group. So now you're looking at a 3rd, 4th wide receiver who's getting snaps. instead of if it was maybe just a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. Now it's just the backup. Now you're down to your third and fourth, possibly even fifth string wide receiver. So strong lean towards Tampa in this one. I think they win straight up. Now we're on to Pittsburgh at the Colts. Pittsburgh's bandwagon's getting pretty large too. They're 3-0, 3-0 ATS. And we could see 64% on them. Colts won straight up last week, which that game was a coin flip. I just don't trust Anthony Richardson, so it's hard for me to get to the window with a Colts ticket. But Steelers, it's one thing to be getting points like they were the first couple of games, or being at home laying points, but now they're on the road laying points. It's just strong for a team that really isn't that. It's just rich for a team that isn't that strong offensively. I know Fields has been playing well, but this team just doesn't score that many touchdowns. So that's my one concern with them. It looks like a really good spot for the Colts. But I just can't get around Anthony Richardson. But it does look like a Colts week. They're a home dog, only 36% on them. I expect them to make their best effort. And who is Pittsburgh to be laying 2.5 on the road? I know they're 3-0. I know they're 3-0 against the spread, but I need to see more from their offense before I'm going and laying this type of price on the road. Next up, we got the Patriots at the Niners. This one, Patriots just got demolished by the Jets on Thursday night, primetime game. Niners were heartbroken last week against the Rams, losing at the last minute. 10.5 is just a number I don't like laying that much, a number that big. And I'm just not backing the Patriots with a Jacoby Brissett-led team. I would only take 49ers money line. Next up, we got the Commanders at the Cardinals. Cardinals lost a close one last week against the Lions. Cardinals have looked great this week. They've got a really tough schedule. They played the Bills week 1. Then they smoked the Rams, who had a bunch of injuries, and then they lost to Detroit last week. Washington just had a big upset win against the Bengals last Monday night. So everyone saw that. Everyone saw how well Jaden Daniels played. But I'm surprised there's not more money on them, given how well he played, especially since it was a Monday night game. And Washington's been pretty good this year. Washington's been pretty good this year. They beat the Giants without scoring a touchdown, though, and then they just went and beat the Bengals. So I think this Washington team's a little overrated, and I think this Arizona team is a little underrated. I'm taking the Cardinals. I'm laying the 3.5. I don't see any problem with that. I think Arizona is going to be one of the better teams this league, and I think Washington just regresses back to the mean. So this is one I think the public's right on, 57% on Arizona. Now we got a game where we're flipping coins in. Browns against the Raiders. Raiders are without Devontae Adams, their top receiver. Not that big of a deal. Not a cluster injury. And then we've got the Browns on the road, laying 2.5 points. Raiders just lost straight up to the Panthers as a 5-point favorite at home. I would expect the Raiders to bounce back. I just don't trust the Browns laying on the road. It seems like they play a lot better at home, so I'm not going to put any money on this game. I want to see more from these teams. Just seems like a coin flip game, but I would lean towards the Raiders. Then we got the Chiefs against the Chargers. I'm not going to lay this type of price with the Chiefs, or really any team for that matter, especially at home, but only lean towards Chiefs money line. Chargers are another team that isn't that good offensively, and that's my concern. They can only put up 10 points last week. Justin Herbert's hurt. Looks like he's going to go, but how effective is he going to be? I know the Chiefs don't score that much or as much as we're accustomed to, but I would lean just Chiefs getting the win. Chargers are home, but they don't have any home field advantage either. I would expect this to be essentially a home field game for the Chiefs too. So only 40% on the Chiefs. So Chiefs money line is where I would look in this one. Then we got the Bills at the Ravens. Bills just smoked the Jaguars Thursday night, so everyone remembers that. So a little bit of money coming in on the Bills, a little bit of an advantage, 54%. And then we got the Ravens, started 0-2. They get a win last week, so they're 1-2, beat the Cowboys. And I just think the Bills are the best team in the league right now. I don't trust the Ravens. I don't think there's a big scripted angle to this one. I'm just going on Bills. I don't think they're priced quite what they should be, because I'm surprised this money isn't bigger. You're giving the Bills nearly a field goal, and after what they did against the Jaguars Monday night, something's not right with the Ravens. And I can't put my finger on it, but they just seem to not have that many weapons. Zay Flowers they have, who's kind of just a gadget receiver. Bateman's okay. Mark Andrews hasn't been doing anything. Derrick Henry's been okay. So I'm rolling with the Bills. Just think they're better. And this is another coin flip game. We've got the Titans against Miami. I think Skylar Thompson isn't playing. Someone else is. I don't know if it's something Boyle. Either way, I don't think Miami can get worse than what they were last week. That being said, I don't know if I'm taking Miami. I'm not going to put any money on this game. I would lean towards the Titans getting 2.5 on the road. They're an 0-3 team. So it looks like a good spot for the Titans to get their first win here against a third-string quarterback. And then we've got Seattle going on the road versus Detroit. These two teams played last year. Seattle won straight up, 37-31. Seattle has had a very easy start of the year. Really easy strength of schedule. They haven't played anybody. They've played the Patriots with Jacoby Brissett. And let's see. They've beaten the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson, and they beat Bo Nix, a rookie, in his first start. So I'm leaning towards Detroit getting its revenge. Detroit's had a tougher strength of schedule. They've played the Rams when they were at close to full health. I know Puka got hurt that week. And then they played Arizona, an underrated team, and then they lost to the Bucs straight up, but they outgained them in that game. So I think Detroit's a little underrated, so I would take Detroit. So to recap, I think Carolina plus the points, Jets money line. I'm staying away from Jacksonville and Houston, staying away from Rams and Chicago, but just think it's a right spot for the Bears. Like the Vikings plus the points. Going to stay away from Saints and Falcons. Want to see these teams play another week, see if the Saints are a real deal, and just get more information on the Falcons. I like the Bucs here at home +1. Phillies down their top 2 receivers. Staying away from Pittsburgh, Indy, 49ers money line. Cardinals, I would buy this down to 2.5 or just take them money line. Chiefs money line, Bills +2.5, and Detroit money line.